Okay, now let's bring in two new guests to discuss. We've got foreign affairs analyst Harley Lippman, also with us, senior fellow for national security for the Heritage Foundation, Steve Yates, also being the former deputy national security advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here with us. The first topic I want to get to is Iran's main crude export terminal at Karj Island has seen no departures since July 31st as the U.S. enforces a strict naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Yesterday, Iranian officials said the blockade will cost Iran $18 billion yearly and could halt its economy. Now, he went on to say the blockade is more damaging than war. So can Tehran withstand the devastating financial toll of zero oil departures? But Secretary of War Pete Hegseth also had this to say.
To hold as long as we need to. Indefinitely, the United States Navy can maintain a blockade like that because we'll rotate ships in and out as we have and we'll continue to. And it's no other nation on Earth, no other Navy on Earth has the capability to have a wall of steel like the U.S. Navy and then the willingness to use it as we have. So Iran knows it can't get in and out on this blockade, and they know that there's no timeline on it either. We'll hold it as long as we need to.
Harley, your reaction to that?
Well, I think he's quite right. 90% of Iran's exports come from Karg Island. So it's very significant to your point that there's been no exports since July 31st. And that's the challenge here. Nobody knows how long it'll take. But at the end of the day, we've seen Iran bends and bends and bends. But to have success, you need to break them. So that means you need to do it as long as it takes, because at some point, they will run out of money. They won't be able to pay their soldiers, which means those soldiers are not likely to turn on demonstrators. The economy is collapsing. Everything is going up, inflation, unemployment. Their currency has gone down 10% when it was already down over 90%. So that's not sustainable. An economy will collapse at some point. So we need to show resolve.
Mm-hmm. You know, you have to wonder at the same time if this is a risky strategy for Trump, because we know that there is the possibility that Tehran will hold on as long as possible. At this point, they're rationing scarce goods. They're limiting access to foreign currency. They're shifting more of the burden onto households. Is there the possibility that Tehran is able to hold on longer than Washington suspects, and this ends up backfiring for Trump, Steve?
Well, I think the president is determined to keep the economic pressure in place, maximum pressure. I think that's the right approach. It's kind of telling that the Iranians themselves are admitting that they have had no access to Karg Island. That is an outstanding development. They should not have access to the resources of Karg Island, really, from my point of view, unless there is a complete change in the role of the Revolutionary Guard. Revolutionary Guard is the long pole in the tent that is creating the problems, still engages in economic terrorism, and is still what's keeping the Iranian people at bay from feeling safe to impose their own will for their future. So I support the idea of keeping the maximum pressure in place. I think the open question is, just in terms of political pressure at home, do we have the right mix of messaging to the American people to understand what we're in for? I think with the American people knowing that we can hold this at acceptable cost and will manage the fallout from this, that this is a slow grind to put down this bad regime, then I think the people can be quite patient. It's the uncertainty in the markets that I think trouble the politics going to the midterms.
Now moving on, there's a new report that CIA held low confidence in Israeli intelligence regarding an alleged Iranian shoulder-fired missile that prompted President Trump to secretly switch aircraft in Turkey after a NATO summit. President Trump and a small group of aides were secretly moved off Air Force One to a military aircraft while Air Force One took off without him as a decoy, the Secret Service acting out of caution. So when you look at this, Harley, should Washington disclose more information about the threat, or is there also the belief that perhaps they've already disclosed too much information about it and should keep stuff like this more close to the vest?
Well, I think first off, we have to define low confidence. In the industry, that only means a single source or uncorroborated. It doesn't mean doubtful or skeptical. And that's really important because people are drawing implications that are not true. You can't take any risk. Just last March, a Pakistani man who was convicted in a federal court of trying to assassinate President Trump after he admitted in open court that he was hired by the IRGC. He was hired by Iran. So, and if you go to Iran today, you'll see billboards of Trump dying in a pool of blood, and Iranian officials have been calling for his death for a long time. So you have to take these threats very seriously, and I think that's the real message here.
All right, thank you both so much for your insight. Harley Lippman and Steve Yates, have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.